Welcome, all pregnant families, midwives or birth workers. This is Tracy Anderson Askew, your host for the Transform Your Birth podcast, changing your mind about birth one story at a time. Each week we will be exploring a birth story through the lens of what birth can teach us. I'll be digging deep into each story so you can learn what it is that can change the way a birth unfolds. We can't control birth, but we can influence it. So listen in to find out how. Enjoy. In the podcast this week, we have Evie, who has had 2 babies. In her first birth, she was in a relationship that wasn't safe. With a different partner for her second baby, she experienced safety, love, and support, which changed everything. She chose to have a home birth, wanting a more holistic approach to birth, and developed a beautiful relationship with her midwife. Her labour started with her water breaking and finished with a baby delivered into her own hands prior to the midwife arriving. She felt her ability to stay calm was the key to calmly welcoming her baby, even when the cord was wrapped around her neck. Some wonderful wisdom from a woman who has experienced both sides of the coin. Enjoy.
Before we begin, a note from our sponsor. This episode has been brought to you by Transform Parenting, an organisation that provides courses, coaching and community from pregnancy through to the first 7 years of a child's life. Most of the stories you will hear through this podcast are graduates of the Transform Your Birth workshop held in Canberra. Our Transform Your Birth Today course is now available to anyone, anywhere, at any time, and includes all the wonderful wisdom of this course and live weekly catch-ups when you need it with our host, Tracy. For a little taste, please accept our pregnancy gift offer, which contains free the first few lessons and some essential wisdom for pregnancy. The link can be found in these show notes or visit transformyourbirth.com.au. And now for the episode.
Hello, everyone. I'm back with you again this week for the Transform Your Birth podcast. And with me today is lovely Evie. And Evie has had 2 babies. And she's had 2 very different circumstances around the birth of each one of them. And I often say every birth teaches us so much. And when we have more children, we often bring a lot of the learnings and the wisdom from each birth into the next one. Welcome, Evie. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's such a wonderful opportunity and to share this with you and the wider audience as well. And the vast differences of birth.
Yeah. So tell us briefly about what you learnt from your first birth and then how that kind of informed the decision making and the choices you made for baby number 2.
So my 2 births were very, very, vastly different, as you've touched on. My first, I was in to describe it, a very abusive, controlling relationship that I actually left when I was 6 months pregnant. So for me to move past that, it did leave a lot of fear. And that first birth led to me really holding on when I went into birth, not dilating as I should have, and a little bit of intervention. I think even though I was in a small country hospital just with my midwife and a few nurses, you can really see how not having that supportive environment and holding on to that fear, it can lead to our bodies holding on more than we potentially should be because it thinks it's keeping us safe and encapsulating us. So that's my first one. And then, moving on.
Yeah, so the emotional state of any mother in labour is so crucial to sending those signals to the body as to how to respond to the labour process. Mm-hmm. And fear, when a woman's scared in labour, is going to change that labour quite dramatically. And you had a big set of like very, very real fears. So, sometimes our fears are in our head, but you actually had very real fear going on in your life, and your body seemed to want to hold on to that baby a little more. And that makes complete sense, doesn't it? There's such an intelligence to the body, and the hormonal cocktail changes, more adrenaline counteracts oxytocin, making labour slower, potentially stalling, even stopping, and not optimizing those feel-good hormones. So with that experience, then you found a beautiful partner to support you for baby number 2. Tell
I
us how
did.
you were feeling when you were pregnant with baby number two and what sort of choices you made.
Gosh, this made me feel teary just thinking about that
Mm.
that difference. But I did. I met a wonderful man about 5 years, well, probably 4 years after my eldest was born, and I moved over to Australia to be with him. So yeah, my eldest was with me, and just the whole pregnancy. First of all, it allowed me to prepare myself enough that before I got into a relationship with somebody else, I knew the questions that I needed to ask for, being a parent to my eldest, to the same views, to, sharing that same love as well. And that really, really helped build that foundation and friendship into the pregnancy. And I knew and felt safe that we were on the same page. And so from there, it was a really, really healing experience, like the whole journey for me. Um, so yeah,
What sort of
I
preparation did you do, Evie?
for preparation, I think moving to Australia was quite different in some of the views here compared to New Zealand as well, and that was probably the one part that made me feel a little bit unsafe because we're quite holistic. And so what I had to go and do is I went and actually hired a private midwife and planned for a home birth.
Right.
So we didn't have money at the time for a private midwife, but I was like, this is a non-negotiable for me. And so we really wanted to have that space so we could make more informed and empowered decisions along, the pregnancy and birth process. So we researched a lot into that. We made sure we had everything ready and really just walked each other through that process of what that would look like in those months, and then also the birth as well. So much research, so much reading, and a lot of conversations.
Wow. And of course, choosing your care is one of the most fundamental things you can do, particularly when it comes to safety. And a lot of women, don't even consider a home birth as being something more safe. But for other
Mm,
women, it feels much more safe because the level of care, attention, and support that you get is really second to none. That continuity and being in a system that, well, it's not in a system. You're actually with a model of care where you can spend 1, 2, 3 hours talking to your midwife about
you
what's
can.
going on with your life, and she gets to know you, build up that relationship with you. And yeah, it's interesting. New Zealand also is a place that is known for its low intervention rates, as well as
Hmm.
being models of care that are much more woman-centered. So I'm not surprised you found that when you came here to be a scary thing.
Yeah,
What was your
absolutely.
relationship like with your midwife, and how did that then evolve into, a working relationship with your partner as well?
Well, my partner also made sure that he was in each of the appointments with us because it
Mm.
was really important to me that I had, an active, supportive partner. And with my midwife, I was able to ask all of the questions that I had, and she was very open with me. She would lay out all options, and we were very careful, even just picking, that
Mm.
primary carer, because you need to sort of feel out that relationship the first time that you meet. So we were able to always have open conversations. Like, she was very huggy, but very respectful of my body as well, with, always asking permission and things like that too. And just very, very nurturing, which is something I needed coming from the past, past trauma that I had.
Yeah.
Um, so it was really wonderful for, Nath to be involved. Like, my eldest was there as well sometimes too.
It becomes a family affair then, doesn't it? It's beautiful.
Does. Yeah.
Terrific. So tell us, how did the day unfold when your second daughter started to come in?
Oh, goodness. Well, it was actually one of those things that I'd happened to calculate, and bang on the day that I calculated, midnight struck. And I started leaking with my waters, and I was in bed, and I was like, oh, and I was like, okay, here we are. It started, and it was midnight, and I had had a look at the time, and I was like, it's still going to be quite a few hours before, they start breaking properly and the contractions start and everything. So I just gently wakened my partner, and I was like, my waters have broken. And I went and got like a puppy pad, and I put it under me in the bed, and I just went back to sleep. I just really wanted my body to calm and have that time for preparation. And I think I woke back up about 7:30. I let my midwife know that, hey, you're broken. Here's how far apart the contractions are. She's like, okay, yep, cool. Keep me in the loop, and they just started very slowly.
Can I just come in there, Evie?
Yeah, absolutely.
What she's described there is very wise. In the middle of the night, your waters start breaking. If that, happens, it's very easy to get very excited and then stay up the rest of the night watching and seeing what happens and waiting for the contractions. But remember, the biggest challenge you always have in labour is you don't know how long you're going to be in labour for. So you really need to pace yourself. And being as normal as you can for as long as you can is the key to being able to manage whatever the distance you've got to do, you've got to run with this baby. So going back to sleep at night isn't always easy, but it was a very wise thing to do, particularly before the contractions really took hold. That was really smart. So tuck that little piece of wisdom away, people.
Absolutely. My first labor was about 10 hours, and I can definitely attest to staying up. Because I think my previous one, my waters had broken round sometime in the afternoon, and I ended up birthing my eldest at 3 a.m, and I was exhausted. And that level of exhaustion that you have in that sort of that last part of birth, it's truly exhausting. So just to know that your body, like, we were made to do this, and that's something that I always reminded myself, is we were made for this. Our body knows exactly what it needs to do and when. And so it was really just good to be calm and then just start going through. I think as the contractions started hitting, my partner kept just giving me little back massages, rubbing my back as each one came through, and I'll just breathe through that, and just stay as calm as possible. And he was filling he had a pool as well, so he went off to start filling that. Unfortunately, it didn't fill in time, but that's okay, because it all turned out wonderfully anyway. So after that, I think I was speaking to my mum on the phone back in New Zealand, and she was like, you need to call your midwife. You're in your second, I think this is 3 stages of the second stage of that labouring. She's like, she's an hour and a half away, Evie. You need to let her know. I was like, okay. So I gave her a call, and she's like, I'll just finish my breakfast and I'll pop up. And from the my partner just continued to do the massaging, get everything ready. My eldest was around too, because it was really important for us to be together as a family and for her to witness, the birth. She really wanted to be part of it. She was close to 6 by that time.
Can I ask you what sort of preparation you did with her?
We had a lot of chat. So as I said, she was really involved in sort of the talks with, not all of the talks with the midwife, but, some of those. And we had very open conversations about what to expect. And there may be the times where I guess it sounds painful, but it's okay. It's part of the birth process. And again, this is, we're made for this, and it's just a day in our life, or for some women it could be 2 or 3, but it's such a short time. And so, we forget that, and it's just it's all done. Once it's over, it's done. So for my eldest,
I love making that so normal and natural for your daughter. This is one of the things, birth has sort of been taken out of the family home and put behind big doors in hospitals, and it becomes mysterious, and most people haven't had anything to do with babies or birth or anything until they actually go in to give birth. And you've given us such a positive role model right from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Lovely. Mm.
I was, I guess, blessed enough when I was 8. I actually watched my younger sister be born. And
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm about to turn 40 and I have never forgotten that experience.
really.
And it was such, such an experience to actually
Mm.
know where they come from and be part of that and the connection that's there. Like, I can say to my sister, I was there from the moment you were born.
Mm.
My eldest was like, I watched my little sister be born as well, and it just made her feel so nurtured and
Yeah.
supported and included as well.
Mm. As a doula, I used to support a lot of children in home births. I've worked with a lot of children, and children are fine as long as everybody else around them is fine.
Yeah.
So if the people in the birthing space feel confident and calm, even though the mother might be making some strange noises, we just make it the most normal thing in the world, and they just adapt accordingly. I have seen though with one son of a birthing mum, he was really struggling. We had to in the end remove him.
Mm.
But yeah, for the most part, most kids are very adaptable to those environments if we feel very comfortable about them being there. Did you find her distracting at all?
No, I didn't. She was incredibly nurturing herself. Like she,
Wow.
made sure I had water. I remember she ran and got some towels for us at one point, and
Yeah.
I remember her ooh when my waters properly broke. I'll never forget. Just go, ugh, you know. It was hilarious, and it just like sort of just laughed, and I don't think
Oh,
she's forgotten that either. But um, yeah, it was really funny, and you sort of laugh in that moment as well, and we're still
yeah.
laughing about it 7 years later.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. What did, how did your partner and potentially your daughter support you to find comfort? What sort of things made a difference to you managing the sensations?
I think remaining really calm. I know
Mhm.
that my partner, because he was a first time dad at that point,
Yeah.
um, he he can be quite an anxious person as it is. So he had to really, really remind himself to stay calm as well. And he looked to me for that instruction. And so he sort of mimicked that. As long as like I was calm and I knew what I was doing and he could see that I was confident and comfortable,
Yeah.
then he was also able to calm and nurture and support. So it was just, I mean, he was obviously running back and forth, filling up the pool and making sure all of that, and in between coming and rubbing my back and everything. So we had set a bed up in the lounge, a mattress in the lounge.
Mhm.
Um, and I just remember being on there with the contractions, and sometimes I'd lean over the yoga ball that we had as well. I think, those really big ones.
Yeah.
And he would just be in there just massaging my back. And that was probably the biggest thing that I remember.
Mm.
And he didn't talk because I didn't want to hear that noise. And yeah, just making sure that, like, if I needed a flannel, he'd put that on my head to help calm down.
Yeah.
And my eldest, similar, but with more just, making sure I had a blanket or a drink, or, ask if I was hungry. Of course, I'm not hungry, but she was double checking if I was hungry.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it was really wonderful. I
Mm.
think if you just have that nurturing environment, it is fully inclusive of being nurturing.
Yeah. Women, it's hard for women to let go when they're overstimulated, bright lights, people talking to them. That's
Mm,
why, if you want to really create the best conditions for labor to unfold as
mm,
naturally and in an undisturbed way, then home birth really is a great option for people to consider. But it's where you feel safe, and not every woman
it
feels
is.
safe at home. So it's a very
Mm.
individual thing. So your labor progressed very well to the point where don't think your midwife made it. What happened? Tell us more.
She didn't make it. I think she
Oh,
probably arrived about 20 minutes after my youngest was born.
yeah.
And yeah, that was interesting. I had that sudden urge, of course, that I needed to go to the toilet. And so
Mhm.
I remember I had waddled down to the toilet in the middle of contractions, shut the door, went to the toilet. And as I stood up, baby passed over my spine and I yelled because that part
Yeah.
is quite painful. And my partner came running and he was just like, what's wrong? And I was just like, I'm not going to make it to the pole, get some towels. And I opened the door.
Yeah.
And I remember in that moment actually, and I laugh about it now, but I was so worried about the smell of opening the door. Like, you just remember these really humorous moments. And I was incredibly embarrassed. Anyway, I opened the door and somehow I made it like it was probably 4 meters down the hallway. I was right at that point and I got into the room. The pool wasn't full. And I was just like, just put some towels down on the ground. And I just knelt down on my knees.
Yeah.
And he was at that point going, what do I do? What do I do? You know, the midwife's not here. And I was like, doesn't matter. It's absolutely fine. You know, we've got everything that we need. And I just remember being incredibly calm.
Wow.
And I think at that point, that's when my waters broke and my eldest was like, oh, you know, because it just gushed into the floor as it does.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had my hands obviously just, you know, ready to catch her. And I had this little moment of panic because I'd put my hands there and all I could feel was sort of this raw skin. And I was like, what is going on? And I realized, of course, the baby's head is down. So I had my fingers in her mouth because I'd passed the head. And then, yeah, she just came out in that next push and I caught her in my hands, in both of my hands, and I'd brought her up.
Yeah.
And she actually, and this can be such and I guess a point of anxiety for women, is she actually had the cord wrapped around her neck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you automatically think, oh my gosh, you know, she can't breathe. But I was like, hang on, she's still getting her ear, you know, from the placenta. And I remember Nath just that instinct took over and he just unwound the cord from her neck.
Yeah.
And then we held her close and she cleared out and just started the crying as they do. And I think Nath, like at that point, he just was like, oh my gosh, you know, she's here. He walked out of the room and broke down into tears.
Oh,
and
he had his little moment.
Yeah, he had his moment because he was just so overwhelmed with emotion. And I think I remember just crying, just like, she's beautiful, she's here, she's beautiful. And like my eldest was there as well, just like dumbfounded, like, wow, you know. And then my partner walked back in, of course, and we just, you know, he met his daughter for the first time pretty much like right in that moment too. And we just sat there for, oh my gosh, I mean, I'm the midwife. I remember, you know, she turned up 20 minutes later. I must have sat there probably for 2 hours before I actually moved. Yeah, it was, oh my goodness, it was wonderful. Like, you never plan for things, obviously. I mean, you can plan for unassisted, but it wasn't in the plan. But everything was just wonderful in how it all unfolded, and still so calm despite not it going to plan, because we had created that calm, nurturing space.
How, as you look back at that, I'm really curious about, you know, it all happening, no midwife there, and you were able to stay calm. Are you aware of why that was? What do you think?
It was that purely that, I think, that just that primal instinct taking over of we're built for this, like our bodies know what they're doing, and we need to trust that. I think trusting ourselves, that can be, you know, that can really tip the balance in that space of feeling safe and prepared, or, you know, or not. And for me, it was like trusting my body. I know exactly what's going to happen. You know, it was like, there's no stopping it now, so what's the point in not being calm?
Yeah. Look, you've really mentioned that very strongly, and I really believe that is the key to getting through birth under all circumstances, is anchoring yourself to being calm.
Yeah.
Because if you can anchor yourself to that, doesn't matter what's going on around you, you can go through a storm, but it's like you've got something to hang on to keep you centered in whatever unfolds. And for some people, staying calm is not an easy thing to do because they're not by nature calm. So that's why a big part of the work that I'm doing is actually helping people to downregulate stress.
Yeah.
Breathing, doing the practices over and over again. So the nervous system starts to sink into deeper and deeper states of homeostasis or balance, or the ability to respond optimally without stress to the labour process.
Yeah.
So I really love how you've identified that as your key strategy, because it really is what changes the whole experience. I've seen women get through very, very difficult, complex births, and because they've been calm, even though their births had all of the ingredients of a traumatic birth, it's the ability or the sense of agency and the capacity to respond has what
Yeah.
enabled them to get through a shitty situation without the shit sticking. I'm sure there's
Mm.
a better way of saying that. Sorry, I probably gave a few visuals with that one. But it's that, yeah. I mean, what else can you do? But I think too, what you said there about it being primal is really a significant thing too. I suspect you would have known if your baby wasn't well, and I think you would have
Yeah.
responded accordingly. It's that, oh no, this is going to be okay. And
Absolutely. I mean, we knew that if we needed to, we could call an ambulance.
yeah,
I think we had the specific medication to stop the bleeding in the fridge. That was one of the things that we prepared for with the midwife as well. So that was already
yeah,
sitting there as a worst case scenario. And
yeah,
look, we didn't need it. Um, but yeah, I think being prepared and really the amount of breathing, like you mentioned, we're very prone to anxiety. And myself, like I'm actually diagnosed with PTSD, and I have a very high anxiety, and so for me it was critical that I prepared myself so I could be in that space, because I absolutely do not go to that space
yeah,
naturally. And especially when you come from, trauma and abuse and things like that in the past, then it's really being in this mindful place of, okay, this isn't my natural state. How can I prepare myself
mm,
to do that? And like, if I had have known about, your programs that you have back then, that 100% would have been something that I would have learned and taken on as a support
yeah,
system as well, because I didn't learn about the breathing and all of that. And I know even now, still harboring that
yeah,
little bit of anxiety, how important that is.
mm,
And that could have assisted. I mean, yeah, like it was great in that space, but having those extra tools is what I
yeah,
mean would have been really amazing to sort of
for
have
sure.
preparedness too.
But you
Mm.
did beautifully, and I think
Yeah.
you did beautifully because you believed in yourself. You had the right mindset, and mindset makes such a difference, But we're very we've got a world out there telling us women we're not enough,
Mm.
and we're going to need help, and we're going to need drugs, and we're going to need this, and maybe we do, and that's fine. Sometimes we need help, and that's
Yeah.
completely okay. But at the end of the day, we are born to do this. It is wired into our being. It's part of the autonomic nervous system. It's
Yeah.
evolved over goodness knows how long. And we've got to really just push back against some of those not enough messages and really adopt the mindset that most of the time we can do it without any extra need for fuss.
Yeah.
And then when we need help, that's okay too.
We do. We're absolutely 100%
Yeah,
have what it takes. Like we were born for this. We're made for this,
yeah,
and it's a huge role as women,
yeah,
that we take on and that we get to experience. Like nobody else gets to experience that, and we do. And there's nothing like it. There's really not. And when you have such like just a really beautiful journey, and when you've been through both, like the opposite ends of that spectrum, you just appreciate and value it even more.
yeah. Wow. Evie, what have you learnt about yourself as a result of birthing your two bubbers?
Goodness. I think you've probably just touched on that, is that like I am enough. And that's a huge thing, because being told I'm not enough for the majority of my life, and then you you get to take control of that. You take control of your journey, and you learn that you are strong. You were made for this, and you are enough. And I
Mm.
think that's an incredibly important message to all of our women out there and our mums out there as well, because it can feel thankless. It can definitely feel thankless a lot of the time, but it's huge. Like I don't think enough sort of it like importance and um gosh, I don't know what the word is. Not not even honor. It's honor.
Yeah,
There's not enough honor is put into this journey. as women and as mothers in that birthing process as well. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things for me as well, is that just recognizing each of us for that can really, really change that self. And my younger self before I had children, complete opposite. Like, I am such a different person from what I used to be before I had children. And that has come from all of the experiences and choices that I made, and I got to make them. And it's really, really changed me, like the amount of research and the different views and the empathy and so much that comes with motherhood. It's I couldn't even compare it to, you know, my former self as well.
That's very transformative, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I often, you know, try to help mothers to realize, even though they don't always feel this way, is that it's an upgrade to the system. You're being expanded, your capabilities being expanded exponentially. And the journey is a very valuable, powerful journey, even though it can be hard, and even though things can happen that we wouldn't want to happen. We've still got what it takes to get through that.
Yeah.
So thank you, Evie. I love Evie's story. I particularly enjoy interviewing women who've had more than one baby, because every baby teaches us so much. And Evie's story of having one birth where she didn't feel safe and another birth where she felt completely held and safe, even though it was an unassisted home birth without the midwife there. She anchored herself to her ability to be calm. She prepared her partner, her other daughter, and experienced a beautiful family event. And as a result of that, has transformed irreversibly. Only one way.
Absolutely.
Expanded and and really stepped into being a mother. What you learn in birth helps you for motherhood. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening, and we'll have more goodness for you next week. Bye for now.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe and share this podcast. This episode has been brought to you by Transform Parenting, an organisation that provides courses, coaching and community from pregnancy through to the first 7 years of a child's life. It is a place where you can learn, get support and grow into your role as a parent. Why not take advantage of a special gift for all pregnant women at transformyourbirth.com.au. Or if you have children, we have a gift for parents also.